Okay, this is the Conservation Forestry Committee meeting, Town of Acton. One quick bit of update, Tom Cashin is on this committee and is in the emergency room right now. I'm not sure what's going on, so, yeah, got some stomach issues maybe, something, I'm not sure. So, anyway, that'll be a little bit different. He was the one who was going to report on the Hebo-Hibo project, which we can update a little bit, but Tom is really the key player in that.
Yeah.
For the town anyway, Town of Acton. I don't know if Steve is coming tonight, I certainly hope so. Because Andy, I know why you're here. Yeah. I don't know if we should wait another minute or two.
Actually, I think I remember Tom mentioning that Steve was not going to make it today.
He's not going to be.
I think he was traveling for Thanksgiving.
Wow, okay. Well, we can start with, let's start with the town forest project. I mean, that would be the first issue. We did, Steve and Tom went to the selectmen. The town will not spend money on a forest management plan. Basically, we don't have any money in our account anymore, the forestry committee. It was all spent on the Goat Hill project. So the town won't spend money on a forest management plan. But it's still, it should be discussed as, I mean, it will happen eventually. And I think Andy definitely has some thoughts on the town farm property.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason that I was interested in coming tonight was kind of to get educated myself to a point. I've talked with you, and I've spoken with Tom Cashin as well, and just had some concerns as far as the property itself. I recall when it was cut back in the early mid-80s.
Yep.
And at that time, that parcel was cut rather heavily. And we knew at that time that it was going to take a great deal of time for that property to kind of reclaim itself and sustain wildlife and have a recreational value to it again. And it did, in fact, take a long time for that parcel to come back. And as an outdoors person, I have walked a lot of that property, and I know several other people hike there, they hunt there, there's people that horseback ride up the town farm road. And I hate to see any type of cutting that would impact wildlife habitat to a great extent anytime in the near future. Partially because the other town forest parcel down on Hebo-Hibo was cut back in 2012-ish.
Yep.
Or earlier.
Yeah.
And since the town has two town forests, I guess, I'd like
Three
to
now.
Three, yes,
Three.
correct. Kind of like to see a balance where the recreational aspect of the town retaining a forest is kept as somewhat of a priority, so that, residents have the opportunity to hike and hunt and, do the things that, we enjoy doing in Acton. And also that, when the cutting is done, that, the wildlife aspect and the habitat is given strong consideration before, not necessarily before, but I guess as the forestry plan is developed,
Yep.
the wildlife habitat be kind of connected to that, so that we don't have a repeat of the way that it was cut in the early 80s, so that moving forward, the next generation, as we hand this off to our kids, 20 years from now or whatever, that what they inherit and what they get to manage is maybe a bit better than what we were kind of given. And, I'm also concerned, and I see some of the cutting, like, for example, the cutting that was done down on the corner of Milton Mills Road and Route 109. That 10 years or more for that wildlife habitat to return to any type of normalcy, then we've only really given it maybe 15 years or so of good sustainable time. And I just, whereas our other forest on Eagle Highway is now kind of catching up and regenerating.
Yep.
I hate to see the other one on Town Farm Road get cut at this point in time, so that you've got two kind of rejuvenating at the same time. It's just kind of a thought, you
Yep.
know, that.
Yeah.
I've reached out to a couple of other people that utilize that area, and they have similar feelings.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, not necessarily being against the cutting, because that's a huge part of why the town retains its forest.
Right.
But looking at the recreational, and I guess the educational value of it too, that those things be taken into consideration as the plan is developed and as you move forward.
Yes, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I was on the committee back in 80, whatever it was, when it was cut, and I mean, there was no input from the town really at that point. The only consideration at that point was getting as much money as could be gotten. That was why the cut was done.
Was that cut for both hardwood and softwood at the time?
It was cut very heavy, so I mean,
For both?
I was very young at the time, but
Yeah.
I remember it was cut very heavy.
Yeah.
It was a high-end cut. Anything, of value was taken out.
Okay.
It wasn't a managed cut in that sense at all. I mean, it was basically,
The other concern that I have too is, and I know that you guys have been working a great deal on the Eagle Highway
Yep.
Road and the access and all that, and I'm not up to speed on where you folks are with that. But another thing that concerns me greatly, and I'm sure it concerns all of you too, is when you open up an area like that and you cut it, you're gonna have to improve the road to get access to get your logs out in, from the Town Farm Road. And it always, whenever you improve access, you get some of the issues that have been happening or were happening, probably to a greater extent one time when Eagle Highway Road, we have people dumping trash.
Yeah.
And you have, people, doing things that we really don't want to promote.
Right.
You're gonna get that when you take the project on, regardless, and I understand that at some point we are going to cut it, but it's something that we'd want to consider as well. And I know that at one point there was cutting done up there, and they hauled gravel in on that road, and just the slopes of the land and the drainage and stuff, a lot of it, the town was fighting it on Sanborn Road and Baker Lane for a long time because of the drainage.
Right.
Nobody's fault, just it's the lay of the land and the way things were. Everything uphill was downhill.
Yeah.
Patriots Day storm.
Right.
When that happened, took out a lot of it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, now you've got a funnel system there now on
Yes.
Town Farm. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's,
So, and I guess it's, I don't know if it's, it's kind of a thought and a concern, I guess, as you move forward as well, but I think that the wildlife habitat thing is one thing that I really would like to push to see implemented in the plan.
no, we would definitely, I was hoping Steve would be here. He would certainly be the one that we would address that with, but from my experience of working with Steve, if you prioritize things that you want to see in the plan, he's pretty good about making sure that's, put in there, so.
Well, and that is, if I can introduce myself, I'm
Yeah.
Don Lewis from the Lebanon Conservation.
That's right, I should
Commission.
have introduced you, sorry about that.
I mean, that really speaks to why we should have a management plan.
Right,
Because, the political winds in town might say, go in there and, just like you said, cut as much and make as much money as we can. And that's not necessarily the best thing for good forest management or wildlife management.
right.
Doesn't the State Forest Service have matching grants for towns? Is that limited? I mean, matching grants for management plans?
For towns, can it work?
Towns,
It can work for towns?
I thought, that's why I was hoping I'd run into Steve tonight. because
Yeah.
I talked to him about that, and he was,
Huh.
yeah.
He
there's-
hadn't mentioned that before, but, because we were discussing the last meeting, discussing how do we pay for this plan, you know? We don't want to do any cutting without a plan, obviously, or
Right.
any management without a
Is
plan.
that specific to forest management or,
Right, forest
Okay.
management plans, I understood that.
which could include like a wildlife inventory type?
You know,
plan.
a forest management plan is what you make it.
Yeah.
And we had the same problem in Lebanon, where they went to the Hebo-Hybo property, and the selectmen said, cut as much as you can and get as much money out of it. They also took all that gravel out of that property to get as much as they could out of it. But if you approach it from a different direction, if you instruct your forester to approach the plan from a different direction, that's what he'll do. And it would be good to have it on paper, so that, the future selectmen know that the townspeople have thought about this, and this is what we really want to have happen.
Happen here. Yeah.
I mean, how much does a forest management plan cost? It's not, it's in the hundreds of dollars, isn't it?
I think it's a little more than that, I think, yeah.
Well, if we want it to include, wildlife, water resources, everything, does Steve do like a wildlife survey? Does he do that along with the forest management?
He certainly, when he would look at habitat and things like that, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. One of the things that Andy mentioned, there used to be a pretty good deer yard on this property of hemlock and things, and that got cut pretty hard back in the 80s.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of
Interested
thing
in
that,
that, because beginning with habitat, I reviewed the beginning with habitat data for this parcel, and there's no deer wintering areas showing up
Yeah.
within the parcel. And I've been back there too, and you think there would be,
Now it's 156 acres, right? And how many of that 156 are considered wetland or?
I could give you that number, but I don't have it.
Yeah, you're looking
It's
at
the
it quickly.
southern
It's like
part.
20%, 20 to 25% max,
It's only the southern
but it is the
portion,
southern portion. but-
that's that emergent forested wetland, and then to the south, I don't know who owns the property, I think it's Laterno, but then it's to the open water impoundment there, the large pond to the south. But in this parcel, it's mostly the emergent wetland and forested wetland, which there's an intermittent stream that flows, drains into that area in the middle of the parcel there. But it is pretty significant wildlife
Mhm.
down in there.
Yeah.
With that wetland.
Right.
I think beginning with habitat showed wading bird habitat. Just the significance of having a greater than 10-acre wetland existing there is,
Yeah, I mean, that actually feeds into a trout.
Right, native trout. Right,
yeah, Heath Brook,
that's right.
Wild Brook trout.
Okay, well, any other comments on the forest project for now? I mean, this is obviously a continuing discussion.
But I thank you guys for the opportunity to just meet and speak, and
We'd welcome you to every meeting.
certainly will attend again.
Yeah.
I'd like to attend when Thomas here.
Yeah.
And Steve as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know Steve wasn't going to be here. I thought he was.
No, I think you raise an interesting point that people are using the existing road even though, to get up in there, to take advantage of that parcel in terms of recreational use.
Yes.
And that baits the question of what kind of access do we have to have? I mean, I'm all for stabilizing what erosion is being done on that road, if that's wise.
If you
but-
walk up in there
but-
in the spring, the road is pretty much a stream.
Right, right.
It's functioning both ways.
Did you drive up through there before the Patriots Day?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but after the cut, and it was cut very hard, you could actually see the beaver pond from the road.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
But I have not gone over the parcel itself other than the road. I've looked at it from beginner's habitat as well as with the soil maps. And it certainly is a rich piece of parcel, and it has a rich town history to it. I mean, all these town farms have a piece of, it's a piece of this town story. And, there's earlier history there, connecting over to the Beck Road and elsewhere. It's like there's a piece of forgotten town
Yeah.
history up in there.
Well, it's because people forget that that was, the carriage road was basically the main road connecting up with the Gauding Road, and you had all these roads that came down, like the Town Farm Road there, and then the other one that goes from Sovereigns, all coming up to, you had a lot of major roads, and they've all kind of vanished.
I don't know if we could get the input of somebody like Charlie Marino just to walk it, just to get other input, as to, people that look at things from a forestry/wildlife advantage. I know Charlie's worked with Francis Small.
Yep.
I'm speaking off the cuff, but, he's got that attitude to look at it.
Just have to come up with a way to pay him. That's the key.
Never know, you never know. You might be able to tweak it in the right way.
Well, I think from the recreation perspective too, it is such close
And,
proximity to the Hebo Hibo, which we're trying to gain access,
Right.
For
Right.
recreation, that
Right.
if we're talking about the connectivity of our trail networks in the
Yep.
future,
Right.
it's quite easy to go from Town Farm Road, down Baker Lane, out to Hebo Hibo, out Hebo Hibo,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
It's definitely an access point. Okay, well, we'll keep talking about it. It's going to be a slow process, Andy. We won't do anything fast, I promise you. We don't operate that way. Okay. I guess we'll touch on Hebo Hibo a little bit, Don. I mean, you're here. We did, put it to the information to our town attorney. He's come up with similar thoughts as to what your selectmen had, on it. I guess I did talk with Lee Burnett a couple of weeks ago. He definitely would be interested in chasing some grant money, to make improvements on it.
On the road itself?
Yes. Well, he did the grants, on what would be the old railroad tracks in Sanford, which is now used heavily. I mean, lots of people bike it, they ski it, they bike it, they ATV on. I mean, it's. Have you been on the railroad tracks?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good shape.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was federal grant money that he got for that trail. He would certainly, the issue on the Hebo Hibo, which the goal would be to connect it to the rail bed
Yeah,
somehow. And Lee is down to, it's either one or two landowners, and he has it connected. Yeah, it's either one or two. So he's working on that. I think if he can get it to where it's connected, then the chances of grant money become much better. When you can show you're connecting, another
right.
4 miles or whatever trail to an existing system. So I'll follow up with Lee, but he's definitely, interested in going.
Well, there's some of that, it's like you were saying, it becomes a stream, and Pam and I have been doing a lot of work out on Hebo, on the Lebanon part of the
Yep.
property. And we walked all the way up to the Acton Town line, and the stream,
Right.
was going right across the road, and this was not a minor stream.
No, you're not.
So, in order to improve
Right.
that, you'd have to put in a major culvert.
Yeah. It's still stoned pretty well?
Yeah,
I
actually.
mean, the last logging operation stoned it at least.
Yeah, it is, up through most of the Lebanon part, the road is really in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
It's just this side of the Acton, near that
Yeah,
stream,
yeah,
that it really starts to get rough.
yeah.
And then, of course, the stream,
Yeah.
of course, the water was pretty high there, too. So.
Right. that would take some work right there.
Well, and then what's it like on the Acton side? Is it pretty rough on the Acton side?
It's,
A lot of spots.
yeah, I mean, it's obviously needs some work and needs some drainage and a better surface. Surface work done to it. But I think it's certainly all doable. I mean, it appears from what I can see, I mean, the grant they got on the railroad tracks down there, you're talking $300,000 or something. I mean, they really
Yeah,
put some money into getting that surface and drainage straightened out.
right,
And,
right.
So if we can get, both towns on board with this and I'm still not sure how it works with all the abutters. I'm not exactly sure how it works with, because everybody that owns land there owns to the middle of the road. All the abutters. As far as improvements to the road itself, would they have to be on board with that, or you certainly want them to be aware of what's going on.
Is that your interpretation of what your lawyer said? Because that's not what I interpret. That is
Well, we would have,
it's a public right of way.
right, we would have a right of way, but if you're improving it, I would think you would have to have the abutters on board. I don't know. It's not an attorney, but.
I'd assume you'd want to just
Yeah, I would, right.
from the town's.
Well,
perspective.
especially the ones, at the very ends of the roads. In the middle,
Right,
when you're out in the middle of the woods, I'm sure people don't care that much.
right.
Well, in my conversation with Tom, I got the feeling that there may be an attempt to try to control the type of vehicular activity on this. Did I misinterpret, or is that what he's suggesting?
Well, Lebanon has their end gated, as I understand it still,
Well, there's a gate there,
but it's not
locked,
locked. So it's,
and that was the neighbor, I think, that put that up.
no, the town didn't they?
Did they? Oh, I don't know.
I think the town,
Maybe.
Nancy, you were around when we were discussing that, weren't you? Gate on the Hebo Highway? Yeah. I thought the town put that in.
Well, that certainly doesn't stop the four-wheelers who come in along the power line to get to you.
No, but it would stop trucks.
Yes.
I mean, one of the big issues that, for a while on Hebo Highway, I don't know if it's still going on, they had a truck mud pit in there on, well, it was on Roger Ridley's part of the old Jones Farm property. And they had quite a thing going in there with fires and parties and I don't know if that's still
I think
going
people
on.
still take vehicles down the Hebo Highbo. I think I saw a Jeep broken down at the end there this summer, so
Yeah,
I don't think he had a very good time, but
Sometimes
he was down there.
He was
It's a
down.
lot of fun when your Jeep breaks down.
yeah.
Got something to talk about.
They think they go down there, but.
Yeah, I don't know, that's a discussion we haven't, I haven't been part of, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I mean, I think if you improve the trail or put money into improving it, you're certainly gonna have to stop big trucks from going on it. I mean,
How bad
and you can ruin the surface pretty quickly, so. And I would think with the grant money, I don't think you'd get it if you didn't, if there wasn't some
Right.
restrictions
Oh,
that, yeah, I would think.
Well, one of the issues that we're talking about with our property, the Lebanon property, is, a lot of four-wheelers use it, but for somebody to walk in there, it's a mile and a half just to get to the property, to walk.
Yeah, to the
And
level,
then if you want to do something on the property, and we've done that, half a dozen times this fall. By the time you're done, you've walked 6 miles.
yeah.
If
yeah.
you're gonna walk around the property at all, or, do something. So, there's almost gotta be some sort of provision for people who wanna drive in there. If you're gonna open it up to public access, to kind of work that out, how that's gonna, I don't have the answer, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we need to think about that.
Now, do you you have trails on your property in there?
Well, they're existing, some of them are
Road.
quite substantial, actually.
Oh, yeah.
They were, and that's a very gravelly, the terrain. And so just by going in and out with the skidder, they've created quite a road. You can drive about more than halfway into the property
Oh, really?
on a sort of a gravel
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
Off the gravel pit part,
Mhm.
you're familiar
Yeah,
enough to know that.
yeah.
So yeah, there's trails and skidder trails all over the place, really,
Yeah.
because they did that, they cut it pretty heavily.
And that's 300 acres?
275, I don't know,
Yeah, something like that,
somewhere in there.
yeah. Yeah, I think, we'll get Tom back involved. He's, like I said, he's the one that's kind of carrying this for us on our
Yeah.
Acton end. I only got a call from him around 4:30, so it was kind of like, well, it's a little late to call things off here, but we'll certainly, keep going with it. Yeah, yeah. And the only other update we have is on the other town forest piece now, the Goat Hill parcel, which is 25 acres, that the Maine Conservation Corps has completed their part of the trail work on that, which was to more or less really rough the trail in. They've basically pulled stumps for 5 weeks. But
We had them down for 5 weeks.
we had them for 5 weeks, yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, their contract was to lay out the trail, because in the future, we're hoping to do this handicapped accessible. The trail is 3/4 of a mile, so it's laid out kind of with a lot of
Switch
back and forth, so that the grades can be right for handicap. So anyway, the forest, when you first go into it, it's I'd say normal forest, has different age groups of trees. And then you get about halfway, and I think probably back in the, 30 years ago, I think the orchard for air drainage clear cut the rest of it. So it's all pole-sized and smaller trees. And at that point, that's where it became, they just pulled stumps and pulled stumps and pulled stumps. So it is marked, they did blaze it, so if anybody wants to go up and walk it now, we do have a grant application in. Lee Burnett again has put one in for to complete it as a handicapped accessible trail. We should learn on that, I would think, in the next couple of months. It's a federal grant. That way it would be a hard-packed surface, 5 feet wide. There's only one spot on the trail where they can't meet the grades, and it's because of ledge. So in that case, with handicap, you have to have a landing. You can go so many feet, you got to have another landing, so many feet, another landing. Other than that, all the other grades work out. So if this grant comes through, then next summer that project would come about.
Wow, cool.
I did ride up through the parking area, looks good.
I thought it came out well.
That material seems to be really compacted well.
Yeah, it seems pretty solid in there.
Yes.
So, yeah, if anybody gets a chance, I haven't actually hiked up there since they blazed it and all, but it's a rough surface at this point. It's not, especially on the side hill, that really is going to have to be graded out quite a bit to get a level surface on that side hill. But hopefully, next summer.
So did you guys do something special to get these designated for town forests, as town forests?
Town bought the parcel. They bought it.
And then how did it get the town forest designation?
This committee recommended it.
And the selectmen voted for it, or?
Guess they agreed that was a good idea, as far as I know, yeah. They become part of the town forest.
Because we're thinking about putting it on the local ballot initiative, put it up for town vote. I mean, it's not, that doesn't protect it permanently, but you've got, you know, the voice of the community at the time saying this is what we want, and, you know, if you have a change in administration and somebody decides, you know, selectmen decide we need the money and we need to
Right.
sell this.
Right.
You know, at least we had the town vote and they said we wanted this. You know, that still doesn't stop them from doing it, but it, you know, at least you know that the town voted for it. So
Yeah,
you
it's
don't,
a
you guys don't do that.
It's a little different up here because there's land and water conservation fund money involved in this project. And so within their framework, that if the town accepts the grant, which the town has, then they can sell it in the future, but they have to replace it with something of equal recreational and scenic value. And in the town of Acton, there aren't too many more places like Goat Hill.
Yeah, I think to do.
The chances of them being able to sell it and replace it,
So who has that money, that pot of money? Land and Water Conservation Fund?
federal government, National Park Service,
Really?
National Park, comes through National Park Service.
I don't know about the piece on the Hebo-Hibo, but the other piece goes back quite a way. It was the town
bought that
farm.
way back in the last century.
Yeah,
Well, the
those go
century
back.
before that.
1838. That was picked up as town parcel for a town farm in 1838.
19 what?
1838, I think.
18,
From
yeah.
Elijah James. The funny thing, Lebanon had a town farm on the Bog Road, and the same guy sold both over the course of different seasons of life. He ended up owning both town farms,
Really?
and the town, you know, it's the same guy associated with both. The James is an interesting old name in Acton,
Ah.
tied into a bunch of older
Yeah.
herds and elsewhere. It's just an old name.
Had his ears open on town farm parcels, that's good. Yeah, if you have questions on that, check with Lee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, check with Lee. It's a long process, I will warn you of that. It's a reimbursement grant, so that you have to spend the money, then submit invoices, and then get reimbursed. So it's, you do have to come up with the money.
Well, we are lucky in our town because we actually have, you know, this property, which we got from taxes, and a couple of other properties. Nisbet Pond, you know
Yeah,
Nisbet Pond?
sure, yeah.
And there's another one right on the river, on the Salmon Falls River, that we own outright, and they didn't have to buy. So, you know, we've got several parcels that we're kind
Yeah.
of looking at already without having to spend any money.
And those, Nesbit Pond, that's not town forest land then, that's just town land?
Just town.
It's town land. I mean, we're just sort of toying with this town forest concept.
Okay.
And, you know, if it works out for Hebo-Hibo, then yeah, likely we would to
Yeah.
Nisbet Pond.
Yeah.
And the same thing. I mean, that's got great access.
Oh, yeah.
We've already harvested a lot of timber there.
Yeah.
You know,
So there's no town forest in Lebanon right now?
no. And we're gonna call it community forest. Sounds
Yeah.
much more modern, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. It'll sound better on the grant application. Okay, any other business tonight? Anybody got anything? No? Okay, well, motion to adjourn?
Oh, we didn't approve our minutes from last.
Oh, yeah, right. Yes.
Meeting.
Yes, let's vote on the minutes from the previous meeting of September 19th, was it?
Oops. I believe so. No, October 17th.
October 17th, okay.
Yes.
I'd make a motion that they be passed.
Second that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Accept the minutes. Next meeting would be December, not too far from Christmas probably, right?
Nice and clean, I like your outline. Maybe A, B, C
yeah.
subsection. I just like the way those minutes were done.
You were like,
That's
I like the way
all
those minutes were
Microsoft
done.
Word.
They were good, you know, nice and clean.
Calendar. Third Tuesday.
Thank you, Don, for coming.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll,
Done minutes for a lot of different organizations.
we'll keep in
The
touch.
19th.
Yeah.
19th, I believe.
19th?
1, 2, 3, yes. December 19th.
Okay. Next meeting. Got that, Andy?
It's a balance of what to say and what not to say in minutes. And that system allows you to do that
Yeah.
easily. Rather,
It works.
it worked. As a comment, it worked.
Well, thank you. Oh, I'm not sure what Tom's,
That's for the next meeting.
okay,
Yeah, we're gonna let Tom handle that.
all right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna,
A lot of pages.
he had wanted to know if I wanted to cancel the meeting, but it was so late, I just didn't
No.
think it was really,
Mhm.
if it'd been a day earlier, I would have
Oh,
said yeah.
this was productive,
Yeah.
I don't mind a little forestalling, if the issue has meat, it's worth taking time to do it.
Yeah, it's gonna take time, I mean, it's,
Like Treebeard says in The Lord of the Rings. If it's worth being said, it's worth taking time to say it.
no, it's, and, Andy, if you have other folks that wanna come in, I would encourage them to.
Yeah,
I mean, the more input we get from the community, I think the better.
Yeah.
Um,
I also kind of look at it as kind of at the very early stages, so,
Yes, it is early, but still,
and the folks that I talked to, it's like, I told them that this is like infant stages.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that have to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
before I
Yeah.
really talk much about it, other people, I'd rather
I,
get a feel from you folks
Yeah.
where you're at with it.
Did the town ever have like a natural resource inventory or a town-wide wildlife plan done, anything like that? I didn't,
we bounced around the idea.
Okay,
We've
I didn't know.
collected
I'm
some.
new
It's
to
never-
this,
It never
so-
has,
It's supposed to be perambulated.
yeah,
Every year.
the town boundaries,
the town boundary.
yeah.
It hasn't been done for quite a while. But,
I don't know, maybe it's part of the master plan.
I'm not even sure the master plan called for an
I just didn't know if
inventory.
something existed that
I don't recall that it called for an inventory.
we could pull from to start
But,
something like
you
that.
know,
I mean, I think we rely more on the, main natural areas. and
Mhm. Yeah.
That information that's out there from the state is more what we
Mhm.
work with.
and in all honesty, you're still going to draw on that, you're still going
Right.
to draw on the soils and on the
Right.
national waters inventory.
Yeah.
That they're valuable, but, that beginning with habitat is great,
Yeah,
I mean, I
for a
think it's
start.
good in a town to always refer to that information, and a lot of times there's people in town that probably have as good, if not
Oh,
better,
absolutely.
insight into
Absolutely.
those things, so it's
Yeah.
it's good to pull those things in, but also look at them closely and make sure it is.
I know when the Conservation Committee was set up back in the 70s, you had Vern Walker and other people on that committee, and it was pretty hard. I take my hat off to them, because they really made a nice basis.
Yeah.
I actually think we took a step back when we went from a mapped resource protection to a legalized definition of what is a wetland and what is a wet soil. Personally, I like the fact that it was mapped, and I know when we took advantage of that, it was helpful in planning board issues years and years ago.
Mhm.
To actually have, originally, they had set wetlands at an elevation, the protected zones was at an elevation above the wetlands, so they protected everything at an elevation of 20 feet above the body of water, and it ended up protecting a good percentage of the town. And it made a lot of sense, because, if it's mapped, if you encroach on it and take gravel out, you change that water level. You can't do that if you're protecting the area around that to the same degree as if you go in and say, well, this is a wetland, and we're protecting wetlands, but what is a wetland after you've taken the gravel source out? You've taken that hydraulic head out, then that wetland is diminished. So what I'm saying is, you allow the activity, or subsequent activity, to change the basis of the area to be protected. Right. So it's interesting how different views toward stewardship if you want to use
Right.
that word,
Right.
has impacted on what your concern. You know, the way you approach stewardship ends up causing you having a different impact on what is wildlife. I'll give you a funny case. Yesterday, I worked with a bunch of third graders down in Vaughan Woods, teaching them about Native American living practices. And Vaughan Woods is a good place to do it, because that place, in some cases, you've got barbed wire on trees that was put in the 1860s, and that hasn't been cut along the river since 1860, so it's old growth. So it's a good way to get the kids into the spirit of what the natives might have seen here, you know. So, you know, it's more than the approach that you get out of the forest management from Orono School of Forestry. You know, I mean, I remember years ago, Tom had some specialists come in on the planning board talking about the microflora in the bodies of water, you know. So you're looking at things at that level, and it's good, you know. But, no, I thank you for coming. It was good.
No, and that's, yeah, it's a good start on a conversation. Yeah. No. We'll take a different approach, Andy.
I'll definitely plan on attending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do so. Do so.
Yeah.
It's-
Someday you might even want to come on the committee.
we
See
don't-
what I'm saying?
Your meetings are great compared to some of them, I probably should say that, but.
Okay, I guess that's it for the evening. Thank you all for coming.
All right.
We'll adjourn.